What up, y'all? Welcome to Boo TV. Thanks for stepping in. The Indiana Pacers won Game 3 when a lot of people did not have them bouncing back to win Game 3 at home. They won 116-107, and it was a damn good game. Pretty much close from the beginning to the end. Largely, the big story for the Indiana Pacers in this victory was the bench. They got almost 50 points in bench production, largely due to Bennedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, and Obi Toppin, whose energy and effort was amazing. But let's start there with the bench, and specifically TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell was everything in this game. You want to talk about the guy that came in the first quarter and set the pace, set the energy, established the mentality that would be required from the Indiana Pacers to win the game from beginning to end. Largely through that first quarter, the Indiana Pacers were down, not by a lot, 5, 6, 7 points, something like that, 3, 5, 6, whatever, within striking range. The game never got out of control, really moved far away from any one particular team when they were down, right? But TJ McConnell came in and was attacking, relentlessly attacking offensively, wasn't settling, putting pressure on the defense, moving them back, penetrating, dishing out, attempting shots. He was not letting up. And then on the defensive end, TJ McConnell was a menace. The length of the court, in the backcourt, causing havoc, stealing the ball, playing the passing lane, sneaking up, agitating players. TJ McConnell was everywhere. And when he came in with that energy, the tide started to turn for the Indiana Pacers. Everything started going the other way. They pushed ahead of the Oklahoma City Thunder and led for the majority of the game, if my memory serves me correct. And TJ McConnell was the catalyst for that. He got the crowd up out of their seat. He got the arena energized, and everybody else followed that established tone and said, okay, this is what we're going to need to beat this team today. TJ McConnell was the catalyst. He really was. 10 points, 5 assists, 5 steals for McConnell. And I think he's the first player off the bench in NBA Finals history to ever have that stat line. If you're one of those stat junkies, I believe I heard that somewhere, ESPN or ABC or NBA TV. I heard them put that stat out. Interesting. Bennedict Mathurin, what can I say? You always need that one guy that's going to step up off the bench and give you scoring. It doesn't have to be in tune to 27 points like Mathurin did, but he was that guy today. 27 huge buckets. 27. 9 for 12 from the field, 2 for 3 from three-point land. He was given the opportunities, and he was hitting the shots. Hitting big shots. And in this game, every shot was a big shot throughout the course of the game, just because the game was that close from beginning to end. You pull a little, you tug a little, you give a little, you pull a little, you tug a little, you push a little. That's kind of how that game was. That's what it felt like to me. And Bennedict was hitting. And Obi Toppin, fantastic. Both sides of the floor. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. Doesn't jump out at you, 2 blocks. But his impact was definitely felt in that basketball game. He wasn't letting anything happen easy on his assignment. He wasn't. His box score doesn't do his impact justice. Obi Toppin was a menace. The bench was definitely the story for the Indiana Pacers. That was their catalyst. That was their backbone, if you will. That is what ultimately nailed that victory on the board for them today. Not taking anything away from the starters, because they played well. But today's game was about the bench. Miles Turner was a tale of two halves. He was pretty much absent in the first half, and I'm looking, I was like, yo, is Miles Turner going to show up? Because they need him, especially with that beefy front line that OKC has. And I was like, I don't know if they could win this game if Miles Turner doesn't show up in some capacity. Luckily for the Indiana Pacers, he rolled out of bed in the second half of the game and was able to be more of a productive player. Both ends of the floor. 5 big blocks for Miles Turner. Absolutely. Pascal Siakam was Pascal Siakam, which you would expect from him. More or less pretty consistent like he has been all postseason long, all season long, really. Again, Pascal was aggressive, much more aggressive than he was last game. You got to keep applying pressure to the Oklahoma City Thunder if you want to win. You have to be aggressive, you have to attack, and Pascal was that today. 21 points, 8 for 14 from the field, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. What can you say? Tyrese Haliburton had a much better game. 22 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. 9 for 17 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, hit big three-pointers throughout that game. Tyrese Haliburton was much more aggressive. It wasn't necessarily, for me, about how many shots he took, though there was an uptick in that, but it was about his nature. He wasn't settling. He was pushing the ball. He was getting in the paint. If he had to bring it back out or pass it back out, he would. But the aggressiveness was there. And like Tyrese always does, he makes good basketball decisions. And again, he did a lot of that this game. The big thing about Tyrese Haliburton is that he stepped up defensively as well. And OKC was hunting him out. But he wasn't going to let OKC make him the weak chain in the link for the Indiana Pacers. So he stood his ground and played pretty good defense and wasn't allowing himself to be exploitable. And that's the type of stuff you have to bring if you want to win a championship. He made sure he was not a liability, and they tried to signal him out as one. So hats off to Haliburton. As a unit, the Indiana Pacers were the Indiana Pacers offensively. Passing the ball around, sharing the ball around, letting the ball find energy, find synergy, putting it in the proper player's hand at the proper time. Granted, OKC's defense was still stifling. I mean, they scored 116 points, but some of those shots Indiana was hitting, those weren't easy buckets. Some of them, there were hands in their face. I was like, ain't no way that's going in. That joint went in. Even at the cup, when they were getting to the rim, they were met with a lot of physicality and opposition and good contests. And some of those, I don't want to call them circus shots, but acrobatic layups, and they were kind of throwing them up with the body contact. I was like, I don't know if that's going in. And sure enough, it went in. One thing I stressed, that I have been stressing, is rebounding. They have to crash the boards hard. You want to get as many possessions as you can while also limiting OKC's possessions, because their defense is going to make it hard on you to score. So you want to make sure you get as many opportunities as possible to get your shots up. Now, they didn't win the rebounding battle. All right. OKC won the rebounding battle 42-36, but it was close. It wasn't lopsided on the balancing beam of rebounds, if you will. I tell you, every point was critical in that game, man. That was a close game. And like I said, Indiana Pacers, once they went up in the game, they held on to that lead for the most part. I think OKC took back over the lead. Don't quote me on this. Maybe sometime in the fourth or late in the third. I can't quite remember. But I found it interesting because as I'm watching that game, I didn't know who was going to win because it was just close. At any given time, a team can go on a run. You know how it is in today's NBA. But as I'm watching the game, all the energy was in favor of the Indiana Pacers. And if you're watching that game, to me, if you weren't looking at the score, I would have felt like the Pacers were up by 10 to 15 points for the majority of the game. But no, they weren't. OKC was always just a few possessions around Indiana Pacers score. But like I said, without looking at the score, the energy, it seemed like every shot they made was louder than OKC. But OKC was just hanging around. And I'm watching the game and I'm like, I feel like the Pacers are like playing their hearts out, giving it their all. And I don't feel like OKC is really doing that. Like OKC is not playing like crap, but I just felt like they were just going through the motions almost. Not lackadaisically per se, but just not with the intensity. They weren't meeting the Pacers' intensity with OKC's equivalent, if you will. Indiana Pacers played desperately. I don't feel like OKC played desperately. So as I'm watching this game, I'm like, one team seems to be desperate, the other one doesn't, and the team that's not desperate is like right in this game. So I was like, I'm not even sure if the Pacers are going to win, because I wouldn't be surprised if, midway through the fourth quarter, OKC is just like, all right, let's put this one away. Let's put the kids to bed, nighty-night, and then take off. So I wasn't even that confident the Pacers were going to win. And if I had to put money on it, I would have been like, OKC is going to dial it up with about 5 to 6 minutes left in the fourth, and they'll pull away. And actually, like I said, they took the lead. But within those last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, when OKC was up, the Indiana Pacers did what I expected OKC to finish doing what they started. And the Pacers dialed up their desperation even more, both sides of the floor, and put this one to bed. And it was by committee. Big shots, big defensive stops, deflections, contests, steals. And once the Pacers started pulling away late in that fourth, there was no looking back. And that crowd was a big boost for them, a big boost. Like I said, OKC, I felt like they didn't meet the Indiana Pacers' intensity. And they were still in position to win that game. Well, I think both of these teams are fabulous teams. I do. The fact that the game was that close the entire time and OKC was up in the fourth, and they weren't playing as desperately, I just felt like OKC's clearly the better team here. But being the better team doesn't always net you a victory if you don't bring that intensity, if you don't match that intensity. We've seen this in the playoffs before. Oklahoma City Thunder's bench was the complete opposite of the Indiana Pacers. They didn't get a lot of bench production. Not even from their tried and true hero, Alex Caruso. I would call him the general of OKC's bench. And he wasn't horrible. He had 8 points. 2 for 2 from three-point land, 2 for 5 overall. Couple rebounds, couple assists, things like that. He wasn't horrible. He was a minus 15 for whatever reason. But Caruso, besides this game, let me tell you something about Alex Caruso, man. This guy is like the new age Derek Fisher, except more talented. This guy always hits timely buckets. It doesn't have to be at the end of the fourth quarter, at the buzzer. Just when the team needs a big bucket, Caruso launches that thing. I just feel like it goes in 8 times out of 10. And when he releases it, I expect it to go in. He's like the Band-Aid. He's the guy that stops bleeding. That's how I view Alex Caruso. And he had like 2 or 3 of those this game. Well, I guess 2, since he only made 2 field goals. But they were timely. And like I said, a lot of the shots felt like that to me. Chet and Jalen got off to pretty quick starts, pretty good starts in this game. But they definitely simmered down in the second half. Kudos and courtesy to the Indiana Pacers locking down on defense. And Shea, he had an okay game, 24, 8 and 4, 9 for 20 from the field, 1 for 3. But like the rest of the Oklahoma City Thunder, down the stretch, he really didn't do what was necessary to grab the victory. They needed an MVP performance from Shea tonight. on the road, and they did not get an MVP performance from Shea. And while Jalen and Chet, when you look at their production in the first half, you would think that they were probably on pace to have bigger nights. And while you look at the box score, they're like, oh, he had a good game. 20 and 10, 26, 6 and 3. But even to some degree, it was a tale of two halves, to a degree. I guess what I'm trying to say is that their momentum was slowed down in the second half. Oh, I got an interesting video coming out after the finals that I'm going to put together, centered around Kobe Bryant and SGA. And these playoffs have been validating something that I've been saying for a long time, and people are very quiet about it. Oh, but it's coming. It's coming. Listen, the Indiana Pacers believe in themselves. They believe in this team. Oh, I can't go on without mentioning Rick Carlisle. Seriously, man, this guy is one hell of a coach, and he got my respect with that Dallas Mavericks team back in 2011. He did. Rick Carlisle is an exceptional coach, and he is great at making adjustments, and he showed that back, like I said, back in 2011 when he was making adjustments against that Miami Heat team, and Spoelstra wasn't. I'm gonna tell you what, and he might not have all the finals appearances that Eric Spoelstra has, but looking at the two teams that he would have led to a championship if they win this year, I'm putting Rick Carlisle ahead of Coach Spo. I am. Much more impressed. I would be much more impressed with Carlisle's 2 championships. That's just me. Carlisle can coach his ass off. And I usually don't always watch coaches' post-game interviews, but I've been watching Carlisle's because I just want to hear what he has to say. I do. Moving forward, Game 4. Obviously, OKC does not want to go down 3-1. So I expect OKC to come out with the level of desperation and intensity that the Indiana Pacers came out with in Game 3. So I would be floored. I would be completely shocked if OKC loses Game 4 and goes down 3-1. I would be shocked. I expect them to floor the Indiana Pacers. I expect them to beat Indiana by 10 to 15 points in Indy. That is the type of game I expect OKC. I expect to see their best, and they're going to need their best to tie this series up because they do not want to go down 3-1. And this Pacers team believes in themselves, and I feel like they're only getting more confident and more comfortable as time moves on. And for the Indiana Pacers, obviously, they're going to have to come out with the same energy they came out with in Game 3. They are going to have to match and excel with the energy and intensity and execution that OKC is going to bring. Luckily for the Pacers, they'll be in Indiana and have that home court advantage. So I would hope that the bench would continue their strong productivity at home. But we'll see. This is going to be a lot of X's and O's. This is going to be coaching. This is going to be adjustments. This is going to be substitutions. This is going to be rebounding, energy, effort, and this is going to be about ball movement. And I thought OKC, and speaking of ball movement, I think OKC kind of went away from that this game, to be honest with you. I saw a lot more isolation basketball than you would have liked to seen if you're an OKC fan or if you're the Thunder at all. You know, there's a lot more isolation going on. Anyway, happy to be back in the studio. Happy to have my room almost 90% done. But appreciate you guys for stepping in. Sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it. Would love to hear your take on Game 3 and on the series and what you think is going to happen in Game 4. So definitely sound off. And appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. And I catch you on the next one. We out, baby.